Good morning, guys. It's Michael White, and here's my co-host.
Anthea Moffittis. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all around the world. Thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to this subject.
We're going to talk about something that I'm experiencing, and something that Anthea's never experienced. I have experienced long distance relationships before. I've done them. They're different. I'm not going to lie to you guys. They're very, very different. There's a lot more work required in them.
Yeah.
Compared to a regular relationship. In a regular relationship, there's work, but this is extra work because of the distance, right? And you can't just, like, when there's problems, you can't just go pick up and go see somebody, like
hug them and tell them it's going to be
exactly
okay.
Hug them, tell them it's gonna be okay. And there's a different way you got to go about things when it comes to a long-term relationship. So guys, before we get started, please like, share, subscribe to the video. Anthea will read off any comments that we have today, and help us climb in the algorithm, guys. So we're going to start the video, and then we'll have our discussion. So, guys, long distance relationships. You're going to hear all types of different answers, right? Because it's personal preference at the end of the day, right? But if we look at the majority of people can't do it. They want
it's hard work, isn't it?
They want somebody close. They want somebody where they can do the date nights 2-3 times a week. They can see each other. There's that physical. I'm not talking about just like bedroom fun, but I'm talking about there's that physical interaction. And a lot of people need that. Some people, on the other hand, who are different, don't mind the long distance relationship, because being long distance, like, you get your space, they get theirs. You guys can work, hustle. You guys see each other maybe every 3 months, and you build from there. I've had some people that have had great success long distance relationships. They lived in one part, the other person lived in another, and then they were able to travel to see that person frequently to make it work. And then eventually somebody moved.
Yeah, because I think it does depend, doesn't it? Because if you're both, let's say you're both business people and you travel for a living, then you can meet in different countries, which could be quite exciting, right? But I think if you're in that space where all your work is where you are and the other person's work is where they are, and their life, even though your life is always going to be set up to where you are, and it's harder for you to move, then you really do need to have a vision, don't you? You need to have an understanding of where are you going, because otherwise it could become dead end. And like you said, in a normal relationship, it takes work. So as I said, I mentioned at the beginning, I've never been in a long distance relationship, but I can only imagine that I've been in normal relationships, as in close distance relationships, and they take work. So to have it long distance must take even more work. And sorry, Tom.
No, it does. It's just because the end goal, somebody has to move.
Yeah,
that's the end goal.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to move.
Because look, in business wise, all my relationships with my business partners are long distance. I've never met none of you. I haven't met any of my business partners in person, right? So it works, business long distance, because we don't need to emotionally hold each other like that. Mentally we can, right? Mentally we can just get on with it, because we can have those conversations mentally. And when it comes to the work side of things, no one necessarily needs to move, because we remotely work online, so we can actually be anywhere. Now, had we decided if our business was we're going to make an office in somewhere, then someone would have to be able to run that office, and that would be the decision, I suppose, on long-term business relationships. Where would we open the office, and who would run it, or would we get someone else to do it? But it's easier to deal with. But with a relationship if there is something emotional happening, especially for a woman wants her man to put his arms around her and hold her and say it's okay. But if you don't have that interaction, I suppose security, the lack of security of that feeling could pop up. Or
Yeah.
if you haven't heard from your partner for a couple of days, it's not like you can pop round and see them. So the insecurity kicks in there, and that you got to have this certain trust. And I think it takes a lot. I think I'd rather not, to be fair.
Well, especially when it comes to the cheating part too,
Yeah.
because as I've always said, with long distance relationships, what people need to understand, again, after this, we'll jump into the video. It's harder as in the sense of, because think about it. You could date someone in your backyard, have them, be with them, have the date nights, whatever, even have the intimacy. So even dating someone long distance, that's the harder gap part that makes it difficult, because a
Yes.
lot of times you'll hear people say, I'll admit I've said this before when I've dated someone long distance, or like, dealing with long distance relationships, is I can get that in my own backyard, but clearly there's something here that's special, that's worth exploring. And, because sometimes it will come up to say, like, oh, hey, like, like, are you cheating, or are you doing this? And it's like, well, hey, like, if I have you, I'm good. Yes, temptation's everywhere, but it's at a sense of, do you know what you have at home, and is there a plan? And we're going to talk about it, because our favorite person that we like to cover a lot of his YouTube videos, is going to cover that today. Stefan Labrosier, he's actually going to cover it, and we're going to break down a lot of his points when it comes to doing long distance relationships, and what his views are on long distance relationships. So let's do that, and let's have fun, and hopefully you guys take something away from it. So I'll play the video, and we're going to break down his points, and we're going to have fun doing it.
Like I said, we're going to be talking about keys to making a long distance relationship work. Before we start, please like the video, share it, and comment below. Let's share.
Before we get started, guys, I wanted to say it's fair use, and the original video will be tagged in the link down below for you guys to watch the full thing. We're just giving some commentary, so the full video will be down below if you want to watch it on your own time without our commentary.
Share some tips. Tell me what you think is necessary to make a long distance relationship work. So again, first let me get this out the way. Me personally, I haven't always been the biggest fan of long distance relationships. And I can't say I'm necessarily a fan right now. That doesn't mean it can't work. That doesn't mean there haven't been many successful long distance relationships, or relationships that started off that way and then eventually they didn't have to be long distance anymore. However, there's just so much that goes into it, and a lot of times people aren't as ready and prepared for it as they want to believe. They're simply trying to hold on so dearly to this individual that they really like and they connect with and all these things, but they're not really considering, can I handle these dynamics? Can I handle this distance over a long period of time? There's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself. But again, as I stated in the very beginning of the video, there is a formula for success in all the long distance relationships that I have seen with the people I have sat down and coached. I have noticed what has worked. I have noticed what has been points of tension and what has created a disconnect in that relationship. So let's go over it today so that I can help you be set up for success, whether you're in one or you may find yourself in one day. All right. So number one key to making a long distance relationship work is communication must be a priority. Now, some of y'all might be thinking, well, that's common sense. Of course we got to talk, especially if we're long distance. Granted, but here's the thing. What I find in a lot of long distance relationship situations is that the amount of communication is not really discussed as far as what each partner needs. And not just needs from the standpoint of what makes you happy. It's also about what you need from the standpoint of what's going to help you feel more at peace and secure in the relationship. Now, granted, some people may say, well, listen, you have to be secure within yourself. You really can't put too many high demands on your partner. To a certain degree, yes. However, again, when we're starting off, at the very least, when we're starting off, all right, this is new territory for a lot of people. You've got to get comfortable with this. And you got to get comfortable with the fact that, yes, they're going to be at a distance from you, and that can be hard to deal with over time. So this is a different playing field to where, yes, you may have to up the communication initially to get to that place where you feel good about this relationship. You're going to have to be honest about whatever it is you need. So, for example, if you're a person who needs good morning text, so to speak, and that's important to you, or hearing from them in the morning and before going to sleep, you need to express that. Because many times what creates a lot of tension in these relationships is these unspoken expectations. So one person is hoping that, well, of course you should be calling me in the morning and at night because we're long distance. Why wouldn't you want to, since we can't see each other? And the other person's thinking, yo, we spoke this morning. That's good enough. or we spoke yesterday. Like, they're not seeing it the same way, not because they may not be invested in you, not because they may not be as serious about you, simply because their level of need for communication is different than yours. They also may have a lot more going on, which then, again, throws off how much they're focusing on the need to communicate. So these things need to be laid out from the jump. Both sides need to be honest, not just about what you need, but what you are prepared and willing to give. So again, if that individual is saying, listen, I need FaceTimes daily, okay, because we're at a distance, and you're like, well, listen, I don't like being on the phone or showing my face like that. I'm not sure if I can do that. Be honest. If that's how you really feel, be honest, because it's better for you guys to make sure you're on the same page and get things right, rather than to act like you can do whatever they need and be the person that they're looking for, and then you fall short and the whole thing blows up in your face. You would have been better off just being friends in the meantime until maybe at a later time you guys can actually have a relationship in person with each other. So again, communication has to be a priority, but you have to lay out the needs and what you are willing to pour into them communication-wise. Be upfront and honest about it so there's no confusion. The number two.
Okay, let's break down his points. You see, I agree with him on a lot of things that he said. The communication has to be maximized.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come up with a system. Are you going to talk 3 times a week? Do you need good morning text, good night text? Do you need a certain number of FaceTimes to feel secure in the relationship? And I love that he said, don't be afraid to voice your needs, because don't put this person on a pedestal and they fall short.
Yeah.
If it's not something you can do, it's not something you can do.
No, it isn't that just like the most crucial thing on all of it there is to actually communicate what's going to help you feel a certain way. And like Stefan said, you know, yes, it is down to us. Different because you're not physically seeing that person. So when you don't have that physical touch, you know, that everything can disappear very quickly, all the emotions. So especially if you don't have a plan to see one another, because it's like, what are you looking forward to? You've got to make it exciting for yourself. You've got to make it super exciting in the sense of it, like you would in a normal relationship. You'd be getting ready to go out, or you'd be, you know, you'd be knowing that you're meeting up with them. So you've got to find different ways to keep that spark and that goodness going, I would assume. That's the only way I could think. If I was in a long distance relationship, how would I actually play it out? And I think you're very right. And what Stefan's saying is there must be a system in place. You must have certain things implemented, because if you don't like FaceTime and the other person wants FaceTime twice a day, then, and you're not voicing that, and then you're turning up getting all like all
They're
lumpy,
falling
like
short. They're
yeah,
falling short of the
yeah.
expectation.
And then you're like, well, why are you like in a mood? And it's like, well, and the person's not communicating. Well, I just don't like being on FaceTime, and they're just doing it just to satisfy the other person. And no, it doesn't work. You have to,
Want it.
like you said, yeah, you've got to be honest. You've got to be on it. You've got to, yeah. I suppose it is very different, isn't it? It's such a different
Well, there's a reason why
experience.
I wanted us to cover this. A lot of people now are starting to give up on dating in their own backyard and starting to date long distance. They're
But do they
starting to
know
look
what
for
they're
love.
getting? Yeah, but do they
What?
know what they're getting themselves into?
Yeah, well, a lot of people, yeah, because a lot of people are tired of looking for love in their own backyard
Yeah,
and would rather look for it long distance to get a different experience. You see, dating for me here in Canada, like where I'm at, might be completely different dating where you're at. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like the women over there might be completely different.
they are.
So that's why I'm saying that a lot of people now are just like, I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I need to change it up. I need to date something a little different. I need a different dynamic.
Mm,
Now, I love what Stefan said. It's about closing the gap.
mm,
I've had friends that have dated people long distance, and how they close the gap is 3 date nights a week, or 2 date nights, or twice on the weekend. But they were closing that gap all the time. They were talking during the week, not much, maybe a text here, a text there, a phone call here when they could squeeze it in, and then date nights on the weekend. And from what a lot of my friends told me, how they closed the gap is they had bedroom fun via FaceTime, I guess you could say, on the weekends to make up for the lack of intimacy in the relationship.
mm.
And they said that that's the only way. Some of my friends on distance relationships didn't work.
No.
Some of them did. Some of them went the distance. They were willing to jump on a plane or willing to do whatever it needed to do to go see this person and close that gap.
Yeah, but you got to think, long term, how often can you honestly do that? How many times can you take out of your life just and go and spend a week, especially if it's long distance, like super long distance? I think there's so much to consider. That it's almost not that you can choose. It's not like a choice
Well,
like
it's
who
got to
you
be
fall in
worth
love
it.
with. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not like you can, whoever you fall in love with, you fall in love with. It's not like you go, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with this person. It's something a connection that gets drawn to you. But I think, for me personally, I think if I had a choice between having a long distance and having someone here in my backyard as such, I would choose to be here because I don't think I'd
You know
want
what?
to.
I'm going to disagree with you for one reason, but go on.
No, because to me it's like, well, I don't know if I could be dealing with that whole thing of trying to work out what's happening next and the communication. I think it could be a lot of work, and it may be later on in my life I'd say yes, but right now for me in my life, I don't think that would go well in my mix of life. I think I'd definitely choose the option of having someone here.
I'm going to disagree with you only for two reasons. For you personally. If the guy had the money and the funds, I think you'd be okay with it.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
That's what I'm saying. I think he would be okay with it because he has the ability to move like that.
Yeah, if he's got the ability to take me back and forth, quite happy.
But that's what I'm saying. If he had if he moved like that, I don't think it would bother you at all.
No, you're right. Because I'm quite a little traveler, to be fair.
Number two, the reason why I think, and again, I'm not just putting it out there, is you're a woman that likes her space.
Yes.
So the reason why I said that I think for you, the dynamic would have to be, he'd have to be able to move like that. But then you would still also be able to get your space and talk to him or whatever. And then if you ever needed him, he would and you're just like, hey, I have this emergency going on in life or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'll be there in a couple hours.
That's right.
I think you would consider it at that point.
You know what, Michael? You know what's so brilliant? You know me better than what I know myself.
Well, it's just because, again, we've talked
I
for so
love it.
long. I just know that you don't like people in your space too much.
You're so right. You know
So
me better than anybody I think I ever
yeah,
know. No, that's really cool. It's really cool that you actually we're on here and you can honestly point these things out because I say things about myself and then you're just like, well, actually, Anthony, it's like, oh my God,
yeah.
Michael, you are
Well,
so right. It's
well,
unreal.
those two things would have to be checked off, I think,
Yeah,
for you to consider that
yeah.
type of relationship. Or you both had that you could both move like that. So let's say he had the financial gains to move like that and you had the financial gains to move like that, I think you would have no problem with it.
I think you're very right because you are spot on there. One thing about me in any case is I like my space, and if I don't have my space, I can get really irritated because I'm
See?
just used to having my space. So you're very right. If somebody oversteps that mark with me, it could be a shutdown for me. That could be a reason for me just to walk if they that overstep in. So you're very very right. It's I don't like people that are just on all over it and just constantly. That's one thing I would have to say at the beginning of my relationship that it won't work for me.
Well, that's
I
why I'm
feel
saying
suffocated.
that's why I'm saying the long distance would work for you both if you both had the funds and you were both just meeting in different places and stuff like that. And then you closed the gap and said, hey, look, are we going to buy a place somewhere? He's like, okay, cool, no problem. Or if he had the funds and he was just moving you around or he was always coming to you, I don't think you'd have a problem with it. And then you'd also get your space as well because you just don't like people being in your space too much. So I just wanted to point that out.
Can I just say,
Um,
you're giving me beautiful visions just now. I've got the most amazing visions going on about a long distance relationship compared to 5 minutes ago.
well, yeah, it's just because I know you as a person, and
I
it's
know
like
you
being
do.
able to, as I said, because as you said, you don't get to pick who you fall for.
No.
So I think if you fell for a gentleman that had like those that could move that way, and you were in a position to move that way, you would totally consider it.
Yeah, because I'm in a position to be able to move that way. You're very right, and I can.
Yeah.
So that would actually could be a lot of fun. It could
Like I
actually
think
be.
you would have
You're
no
making it
problem with
sound
it. If,
really good.
well,
I'm
that's what I'm
actually going to
saying.
look for
Like,
someone.
well, it's just because I know that you're building things and stuff like that. And then again, as I said, if he was flying you out, or you were both just saying, "Hey, let's meet here. 3 months we'll meet here. 3 months we'll meet here. We'll meet here." I don't think you have no problem because you have that adventurous spirit, and as long as that's being met, that requirement's being met of you guys meeting every 3 months, I think you would totally sign up for it and be like, "That's not a problem." As long as I talk, I'm sure your requirement would be like, as long as we talk every day, we FaceTime on the weekends, do date nights, no problem. I think you would
Yeah,
be more susceptible to it at that
yeah.
point.
I think you're on point and 100. I think you're 110% right, not just 100% right.
Mm.
So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there, but we'll move on to point two, guys.
Key to making a long distance relationship work is create structure. So again, I'm a firm believer in creating structure in all relationships. But I do think that when we're talking about long distance relationships, it becomes even more important. You can't go all willy-nilly into these relationships. So when I say create structure, I mean creating structure again with, as we mentioned in key number one, having an understanding of communication, how much is needed, and maybe there is a set structure as far as when is our time to talk. So I have some friends who they had a long distance relationship and the guy was a very busy guy. And initially it was a lot of conflict because he was getting caught up in work. She wanted her time. And again, they had no structure. So he was kind of freestyling it the whole time, but that would leave too much room for disappointment. Now they sat down and they discussed it. Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. These are my work hours. These are the hours that I'm dedicating to just you. So he gave her, I want to say, let's say an hour a day where it's just him and her getting to talk, FaceTime, whatever. And on certain days might be where, okay, he's completely unavailable because of, work, but there's still text. So they had structure. That allowed her and his needs to be met on both sides, whether it be the emotional needs of the relationship, the personal needs when it comes to work and things of that nature. There was structure and there was an understanding. So now if it's 5 o'clock on Monday and I know that's a time where you're dedicated to your work, even though I want to hear from you, I'm not going to get mad at you because I'm not hearing from you right now, because I already understand how we're doing things. The structure clears up confusion. The structure removes that unnecessary disappointment, and it helps people now say to themselves, okay, since I know not to expect to hear from them between this time and this time, let me use that time I have for something else I could be doing. Let me go work on something. Let me go, enjoy my life in other ways. That structure is extremely helpful. So create structured relationships, as well as structure as far as when we will see each other in person. So if we know, okay, going 3 months without seeing each other is too long, we've agreed upon this up front, then let's agree, all right, every 3 months or every 2 months, whatever the case may be, one of the other flies to see the other person, if that's feasible, okay? And we also can agree up front if it's going to be, I'll come to you the first 3 times, you come to me. Anything that you can basically have set out up front is going to eliminate trouble later. So if we can come to an agreed structure, and that also helps because now a lot of times people are getting antsy and it's starting to really get to them that they can't see their partner and physically touch them. However, when you already know that the plan is every month or every 2 months, whatever the case is, that we're going to actually physically see each other, that helps keep you at bay. That helps calm your nerves. It allows you to push through those moments a lot easier because you know the payoff is coming. When you don't know that payoff is coming, it's easy to get antsy, to lose sight of things, and to get yourself into some trouble. It happens a lot. It happens a lot in these situations. Not with everybody. I don't want anyone who's in one to think your partner's doing anything crazy, but it does happen. So that's why I think it's very, very wise to have that structure and agreed upon time frames of when we can see each other physically to make things better. The number 3 key to making a long distance relationship work.
Okay, I want to cover some things that he said.
Go.
Structure. I think any relationship needs structure.
Mm-hmm.
The long distance ones need it more, as in the sense of when are we talking? When are we doing date nights? When are we doing XYZ? I think any relationship needs that structure because the relationship is not the cornerstone of your life. It's a part of it.
Yes.
You still have other things going on, other things that you will be doing. But you see, I love what he said, and that's what I mean. This guy knows how to phrase himself very well. Structure clears up confusion.
Doesn't it just? It really clears up any confusion. Sorry, it really does clear up any confusion at a next level, because especially if it's structure that's being stuck to, as in you're actually doing it. So if you're saying 7 o'clock in the evening, this is when we're speaking, and that 7 o'clock is being met, or if you're not going to make it at that time, you're saying, give me 10 minutes, I've just got back or whatever. At least the communication from what we said at the beginning to the structure is all in place. And knowing, as he was saying, knowing that you're going to see your partner in a couple of months. I was actually thinking, being in a long distance relationship, how exciting that could be as well. The excitement of knowing that you're not going to see them during this period of time, as in physically, but know that there's a structure in place and your flights are booked or their flights are booked or however it works, to know that that's you're going to see that
it's
person,
coming. Yeah, like
it's coming. I think that would be like so exciting. Like, oh my goodness, like how cool. And getting on that plane, knowing that you're going to see them, and that structure's happening every couple of months.
Well, the structure gives you comfort. That's the thing, right? So
sure.
I think in a long distance and just a regular relationship, let's say you're both busy, but you know that at 7 p.m. at night you're both talking.
Yeah.
It's been agreed upon. You know that that's happening. So it gives you that comfort to do other things, live your life out in other ways. And then at 7 o'clock, that person gets the time that they deserve. And then you feel accomplished because of the other stuff that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make a mental note of that. Structure clears up confusion, and that's in any relationship.
Yeah.
Now,
So
specifically
true.
because we're talking about long distance one, there needs to be a structure. There needs to be, okay, we're gonna see each other every 3 months. These are our date nights, blah blah blah. But even in a regular relationship, you would still have that structure.
Yeah, for sure. You're very right. You do. You need that structure in a relationship, and I suppose that's where a lot of relationships fall short because they don't have that structure. It
There
is
is none.
just
Okay,
no.
like think about it. You'll hear the girl say, "Hey, we're not going on enough dates." There's been no structure established of,
Yeah.
"Hey, Fridays and Saturdays are our date nights."
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Or there's been no structure for, okay, we're gonna have. Yeah, honestly, I know some people because their lives are so busy and they're married, they even structure out when they're gonna have bedroom fun. They
Yeah.
structure it out
Well, if
because
they
their lives
know.
are so busy.
Yeah, and if they know they on a Friday night or a Saturday night or a Sunday night, whatever night it is, that's the night that they have got time, as in not that you're not that you're just how can I say, like when I say you got time, it's not that you just got, oh, I've just got that time for
No,
that
but
person
make time for
tonight,
like the
but you,
relationship.
for a relationship it's different because you're actually having to open your world up to what you've already got going on and add something into it, and it's not something small, it's another human being that you've got to consider within that. So if that's what you need to do and you have a structure of, on a Friday night we spend the night with it with one another, and we know that on a Friday we wake up together in the morning, yes, we both have to go into work or both have to
Mhm.
go and work on our businesses or whatever it is, at least you know that that night is something you can look forward to
And
in
it's
that
for
sense.
you. Like it's
Yeah,
specifically for both of you. So you're
yeah,
closing that gap of um that's what you have. You have us time.
yes. Actually, you know what just came to mind? I just had a bit of a flashback of somebody that I knew quite a number of years ago that had a long distance relationship, and I remember them like literally being on the phone talking most nights and just sleeping with the phone still going. Like
I've
when,
heard that.
yeah, so when they wake up in the morning, they're both saying good morning to one another, which is really cool, you know. That's a nice thing as well. So yeah, communication and structure is Stefan's so on point, isn't he? I do love this
Yeah,
guy.
structure clears up confusion. Like
Yeah, for sure.
so I think that's an excellent point, but we're gonna move on to point number 3.
So,
Is be spontaneous. So we just talked about structure, and I do highly believe you have to implement structure, but that doesn't mean don't ever be spontaneous. That doesn't mean don't do things to kind of throw some flavor into the relationship. So everything doesn't always have to fall within the agreed structure. Maybe there is a surprise visit, depending on, you know, the relationship you guys have, and if you guys have an understanding that that's an acceptable thing, all right? Maybe it's just a surprise call. Maybe it's a surprise random picture you send your partner, you know, smiling, whatever you want to send them to brighten up their day. You still want to do little things here and there that, you know, are spontaneous, that kind of break the rhythm, so to speak, but break it in a good way. And again, I think that spontaneity really helps when we're having a long distance relationship, because sometimes, I don't want to say out of sight, out of mind, because when we're really into someone, they're really not out of mind, even when they are out of sight. All right. But again, it can get difficult when we're not always connecting on the level that we want to. And that's when I say connecting, more so engaging on the level that we want to. And so again, those little surprise things, the little spontaneous things, it just helps. It helps. And again, it grows the bond stronger, and it really helps strengthen the relationship. So consider what little special, surprising things you can do here and there in the relationship. Of course, learn your partner, learn the things that they like that they're going to enjoy and appreciate and tap into that and add that to the formula of making this long distance relationship work. Now, number 4 on this list of.
Now, again, I think what he said there works for any relationship. Obviously, more in the long distance relationship, because in the long distance relationship, that spontaneousness is going to keep things fresh. When you send a picture saying, "Hey, thinking of you," or giving them a surprise phone call, or saying, "Hey, do you have like 10 minutes for a FaceTime?" I honestly think if I think that one just goes to show that keeping the relationship exciting
Yes.
is important. And
Yeah, I was
most
just
people
about to
don't
say,
understand that.
yeah, they
Most people
don't.
don't understand that because it's like when you're learning your partner and they're learning you, right? The as he said, obviously structure is still important. You never defer from structure, but spontaneousness is good in a good way.
Yeah.
As
And
in
you
the
hear,
sense of, no, go ahead.
no, God, in the sense of,
Just in the sense of phone calls, pictures, FaceTimes, keeping it exciting.
yeah, I think excitement is so crucial in a relationship, honestly. Like, and I've heard so many people, and I'm speaking on any type of relationship when I like long distance or short distance, however it works, because I've heard so many people over the years say, and they've been with their partner, let's say 5 years, and I say, oh, how's it going? How's it? And they're just like, well, just 5 years, isn't it? Been together with them. It's the same thing day in, day out. And it's like, no, why would it be the same thing? Like, excitement is what will keep that relationship sparks going. And I think everyone needs to implement that into the relationship, whether it's long distance or not. It has to be exciting. Otherwise, what's the point in it? If there's no excitement happening and it's just the same mundane thing day in, day out, doing the same thing every day. No, it has to be exciting.
Exactly. So that one was a short to the sweet point, but we will move on to point number 4.
Keys to making a long distance relationship work is have a plan. Now, have a plan is different than having a structure, though it does pour into it. When I say have a plan, I mean have a plan as far as when are we going to end this long distance part and actually be together in the same city, in the same place, or at least much closer to each other. What is the progression of this relationship? So again, many times people struggle because they don't really know where this is going. We know up front that we're far away from each other, that right now we can't be physically with each other. And ultimately we know we want to, but we don't have a plan as far as when we will. And so that can create doubt, insecurity, anxiety in the relationship. That can make it very difficult. And also we have to understand, if we discuss up front what the plan is, and we come to realize there is no foreseeable future where we can actually come together. Let's say we discuss this and we're like, oh my goodness, we wouldn't be able to make anything happen until maybe 5 years from now. Now we have to ask ourselves, can we deal with this for 5 years? And if not, then that means maybe we just need to be friends in the meantime, or reconvene this potential relationship at a later date when we're closer to a time that we can actually come together. And it's an easier pill to swallow, so to speak. All right. So discuss up front, what is the plan? And again, how long can you both really hold out till you can finally be in the same place, as well as who will move to who, or if you both will move somewhere else neutral, because that is one of the discussions that can tear apart a relationship. You got one side thinking that individual should be moving to them and vice versa, and now they're butting heads because neither one wants to move from their city to the other person's city. All right. These are things you want to discuss up front. Now, granted, life throws different things at us. And so initially you may have a situation where, let's just say in this example, the woman is fully prepared to move to the man. She's cool with it. Everything's all good. They're on the same page. and then she gets a promotion at her job, or she finds an opportunity that's only in her city, and now moving is a lot more difficult. So, things can change, but when that moment happens, when you realize, okay, this is going to be a change in plans now, you have to go back and talk to your partner. Hell, you have to even discuss with your partner beforehand, are we okay with you taking this opportunity? Again, if the goal is to be together and marry each other, then we can't just say, well, you have to deal with whatever decision I want to make. We have to make decisions looking at what our future is and how we're trying to come together later. So we have to discuss these things up front so there's no surprises. And again, there's no animosity or tension created because we weren't on the same page about this. And now we're going back and forth about who should move to who, or if we should move somewhere else. Let's try to get that out the way as best as possible up front. And then the last key to making your long distance relationship work is define.
Okay, so I love what he said there, and we're gonna get into it. You have to be able to close the gap.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out, okay, we're gonna meet every 3 months for a year or for 2 years. Once that is agreed upon and that is understood, you follow through on that plan. But it's understanding that at some point, someone needs to move. And as he says, you're either going to move to them, they're going to move to you, or you guys are going to move to a neutral spot.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what just came to my mind, though? If you're used to, say you've done this for 2 years and now you've got this plan and you're going to eventually move together, it's the thing of, if that's what you're used to and that's how you know your relationship, it's going to bring a whole new set of everything once you're in the same space, because that's not what you know. So it's having to readjust to the relationship. And suppose I'm just looking at the long distance side as
but you have to close that gap regardless, right?
Yeah, you have to close that gap regardless. But it just started to come to my mind. It's like, once you get to those 2-3 years down the line, I could only imagine how different it would be and how you've really got to get used to it. And I think that's why it's definitely worth having. You must be able to see one another in between, because when it comes down to it, you need to have had something where you spent time with one another, not
100%.
Because otherwise,
like that structure of every 3 months we see each other.
Yeah, I think it has to stick into place as well.
It's also understanding that can't be done forever.
No, exactly.
That at some point, the girl's going to move to the guy, the guy's going to move to the girl, or you're going to move to a neutral space.
Yeah.
So I would always tell someone, if you're considering a long distance relationship, put money away.
Yeah.
Put money away, or if you're an entrepreneur and you move like that, you make money on the go.
Mm-hmm.
But understand that you have that money away to do the flights back and forth, and to set up an end goal where you guys are going to move to a neutral space and live together.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very, very important to have that.
That's why I think it's important to, at the end of the day, to understand that there is a due date on us closing the gap. Now, again, as he said, and I love that he said this, it depends on what your circumstances are. Because if you're dating someone that works at 9 to 5 and that promotion's in their city, the guy's going to have to move to the girl. She can't leave.
Yeah, actually, I watched I see a series of something on Netflix about a year ago now, I think. But anyway, the story was that there was two people that they worked in the same building, and they were, from the second they started working there, they would just fell in love straight away, and they would having like an office romance with nobody knowing about it. Anyway, after about a year, they actually got together, let everybody know, and it got to a point where they got married. And just before they were getting married, he'd been offered his dream. Well, his wasn't a job, it was to start his own business. And it was something he'd wanted to do for a very long time. And it was in another state. So they both agreed that it's fine. And she had also wanted a certain position within her company and been dreaming about it and wanting it for a very long time. So anyway, as soon as they got married, there were two things that came out, and one of them was she didn't want babies and he does, and they hadn't discussed that beforehand. And the second thing was she'd been offered a job there in her workplace, and she was actually going to say, I'm not going to take it, but then that started to create some kind of way between them, animosity, because he's taken his dream business. Now she's saying no to it because she's agreed to move over to him. And then it got to a point where it all crashed down because there was no way he couldn't leave what he was doing. She wasn't willing to not take the job on, but they'd got married already. So even though they had that they sort of had that long-term thing in plan, like Stefan was saying, things do happen. So I think you've got to be really prepared for unexpected. If there is things in your life that that if it was to become part of your experience, how would you deal with that? Like, if there's things that you want, if you've gone for a promotion, if you're starting your own business or if it's something you want to do. So I think you've got to consider so much of that. So you don't get
and they have to be included in that decision too.
And they've got to be included in that decision from the start. You've got to there's so much to consider, isn't there? Because it is moving your life. Like you rightfully said earlier on, with me, I would move my life, and I will go to, let's say, for argument's sake, New York for 3 months, and I wouldn't have a problem, and come back to London. I would go to Australia for 2 months, not have a problem, and come back. That's because my lifestyle allows me that. With where I'm at in my life, that allows me to have that kind of thing. But I would have to consider, well, would there be a certain point actually that I would want to be here in London and only here in London?
I was just about to say that. Because that's the thing. You would have to close the gap at some point.
Yes.
If he says to you and you're dating a man and everything's great, and he says, babe, we've been together for 1.5 years now, we need to close the gap. Are we going to live somewhere neutral? Let's say, for example, he says to you, are you comfortable with Florida? You leave where you're at. I leave where I'm at. Let's say he lives in New York. And he says, let's move out to Florida. I've gotten the property. Or you guys both get the property together. And Florida is your home base.
I think what just came to my mind is, as long as I've got a base in London and I knew that I could fly back to London whenever I wanted, and I knew I've got my home here, then me personally, I would say, I'm coming to Florida. I'd move there.
Your home wouldn't be London. Your home would be Florida, but you'd be able to travel to London whenever you needed to.
Exactly. And I think as long as, again, it's that security, it's that plan, it's everything, that every point that Stefan has made, it's that also with knowing that the person who's moving, can they go back to their hometown whenever they want and have the comfort of still got their home there, because if
in a sense, like friends and family, yes. But it's also understanding that when you close the gap, that's not your home no more. Your home is with this new person.
Yes, absolutely. But you'd still consider, no matter where I've gone in the world, I always consider like home to be London, even though my family are all from Cyprus. If you just kind of you'd still feel like that's your home, even though you've made a home in another country. It's always a home calling thing to go back to where you know everybody is, especially your friends would be something different, but knowing that your family, that's where you go to. But anyway, besides the point, I think the whole thing is structure, communication.
There's a reason why I made that statement, not to cut you off, but I think that when you found the person that you're supposed to be with, your family's always going to be your family. And when you find that person, you're building a life with them. They'll always be there.
Yeah.
But at that
Yeah,
point, I'm not too worried about going back to go see them all the time
yeah,
because
exactly.
I've moved. I'm not saying I've moved on from my family, but what
But
I've
you've
done
moved
is
on.
I've created a new family,
Yes. A new life in
a
that
new
sense.
life. So that's what I'm trying to say is a lot of times that will hold people back from doing long distance because they're like, oh, what about my family? But it's also understanding that you do have to go out and create a life of your own.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
if you found that
Absolutely.
person to do that with, as long as you have that flexibility to travel to see your family if there's emergencies or anything of the sort, that's fine. But you really want to focus on this new life.
For sure.
And I think that's more important to really understand that and really sit with that. So we'll let Stefan finish his last point and then we'll add any closing points at the very end.
Define all the boundaries. So, what I mean by that is this. You have a lot of relationships where, again, because we are not in the same place, it can get easy to, what's the word? Lose sight of sometimes how you may not be acting as appropriately as your partner would like. And to give an example, let's just say you go out with your friends. Let's just say the guy goes out with his boys. They have a few drinks. All right. And at this lounge, club, whatever, there's an opportunity to dance with some women. And he's not thinking of it because his girl is hundreds, thousands of miles away. All right. Now, some of you may say, well, he should be thinking about it. Again, I added he is drinking, not to make an excuse for it. I'm just saying this stuff just happened. But here's the thing. Sometimes it's not an act of I'm trying to be blatantly disrespectful. Sometimes it's I personally did not view it as an issue at that time because, again, that discussion had not been had. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need to talk about it up front. What is okay and not okay? Even like if you're going out late, like when you're living together, many people have the mentality of you can't be coming back in the house 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when I hear from you when you've been out all day. Well, some people have that same mentality, even if you're in a long distance relationship. It's like, hey, you can't be out all night and I don't hear from you when I'm expecting to hear from you at night before bed or earlier that day. Whatever it is, we need to have an understanding up front about this and define all boundaries as far as what is acceptable and what is not. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, they're not going to find out anyway. You shouldn't be thinking like that, okay? You got to respect your partner. And you never know who sees it, comes back and tells your partner when they are in your city about, oh, remember that time we did such and such? Like, you don't want to have that kind of scenario play out. And it's happened to people. So again, discuss all boundaries of whether it be how we engage with other individuals, all boundaries of how we carry ourselves within this relationship. We have to establish an understanding of just because we are long distance, it doesn't mean we let things slide more than we would if we were in person. All right. And I would argue that it's best to take that approach anyway, because the last thing you want to do is to become so accustomed to living in this kind of on the edge because your partner is far away. All right. Then your partner finally comes to you or you come to them. You're in the same city. And now it's hard to break old habits. Now you're having a harder time adjusting to a more strict structure with your partner being physically there with you. Don't put yourself in that position. You want to practice what's going to be the actual expectation of the relationship if you guys were physically together, the same way if you guys are going to be thousands of miles apart. So again, have that understanding, discuss all things, define the boundaries so that no one crosses a line that they should not be crossing. So again, it's not easy, but with effort, with desire, with communication, with a willingness to make things work, then yes, a long distance relationship can work. So just be open and honest with each other and make sure you are willing to put forth the effort needed for success. So again, like this video.
I love his last point. Now, obviously, in a long distance relationship, a lot of people are like, hey, if my partner is not here, I can go out and have drinks with female friends. I can go out with the boys dancing. That's not necessarily the case. if you respect your partner, you wouldn't do those things. And that's why I've always said, hey, if you're going
Mm.
to do long distance relationship, because intimacy is lacking in the relationship, you guys need those date nights. You guys need that sexy time to keep the relationship fresh and to keep it eager.
Do you know what? It's so on point. Look, at the end of the day, if you think that because your partner's not around, you can go and do A, B, and C, don't be in a relationship.
Exactly. Just don't do it. That's what I
Don't
would
do
say.
it.
Just don't do it.
Yeah,
But that's the thing. He also brought up an excellent point. You might not even be doing anything, but it just because you're so used to that even when you guys meet together physically or live together, you're so used to them being so far away that you're still practicing those habits.
yeah,
As he said, you
absolutely.
can't be stumbling in the house at 3 a.m. and the girl's like, "Where have you been all night?" "Oh, I've been out with the boys drinking and Frank." And she's gonna be like, "No,
No,
that
no,
needs to
no,
stop."
no.
You know?
I'm
So
not your mother, but it's a no.
well, no, because look, I've heard some girls be very uncomfortable with let's say it's a close relationship, like it's an in-city relationship, and the guy comes in at 3 a.m. in the morning. It's a no for them.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like 12 a.m., like when we're going to bed is our time. You shouldn't be stumbling in the house at 3 a.m. That's single people behavior.
yeah. And it is because I went out the other night and I didn't leave till 3 a.m. But that's because
Yeah.
I'm single and I can
Oh,
do
yeah, yeah.
that.
That's
But
single
if I
people
had a man at
behavior.
home, yeah, if I had a man at home and I said to him, babe, I'll see you at 5 o'clock in the morning because that's the time I ended up getting in, he'd be like, and if he said something, obviously I would respect it because,
Oh, he would just tell you not to come home.
yeah, don't
He'd be like, yeah,
come
don't
home
come home
tonight.
then.
Come put yourself in somewhere.
Yeah, he'd be like, don't come home and go have fun with Chad. I'm not gonna be here when you get back.
Exactly. But I'm so sorry.
Yeah, because that's single people behavior. And I
Yeah,
love that he said that. As Stefan said, being in these relationships requires a lot more work,
yeah,
communication, boundaries, and a heavy understanding of what this is going to be and where we're going to close the gap.
yeah. And actually going out with if you're going out, you can, and it's long distance. If you're in a long distance relationship, then it's definitely for you to go out and doing those things, and for your partner to not even have the option to come with you. You'd want to go out and wait for your partner to go out because otherwise, what are you going out for? What are you
Well,
searching for? And that's where those boundaries need to be in place and be spoken of and understood. Because at the end of the day, it's not like your partner's here with you physically. So I think saving those times when you're with your partner, and if you're going to go out for lunch, go out for early dinners, or go out for a couple of drinks with friends. But you come home reasonable time, you call your partner, you let
that's
them
what I
know
was
that all
just
is good.
about to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
I
you
was
let
about to
them
say
know.
it doesn't mean that you should stop your life, but I'm
No,
saying there should be a higher level of consideration
yes,
of what
100%.
you do.
Yes, yes.
That's what I would say. So,
Relationships are a lot, aren't they, Michael? At the end of the day, we can't put the make it all sound, not that we are, but I mean, putting those cherries on top and the cream and the rest of it. Relationships take a lot of work, and I think this is where, just on an overall here, people don't realize what they're walking into. And I think we had a podcast the other day saying, are you really ready for a relationship? Are you ready for the
and
responsibility of
that's
a
true
relationship?
because if you're someone like me that's been single for a while, been in on and off relationships, you're used to just doing things your own way.
Yes,
You're used to
absolutely.
just kind of not having to check in with someone or any of those things. You're just kind of used to moving in your own space.
Mm,
So then when you get into a relationship with someone that you really like, it's learning to move in each other's space.
yes, and what a difference, Michael. And I think no, like what you just said, it's like with myself. I'm so used to my ways of things that
Yeah.
when somebody comes in, you've got to be really willing to open that space
To surrender to the
to
relationship.
surrender. Yeah,
That's the
and it
difficult
literally
part.
surrender into the relationship. And I think, that can, and I don't know if it's because I haven't met the right person yet, but I think it's one of the most difficult things as somebody who's experienced life, who's older in that sense. I think when you're younger, you can just open up because you haven't built that life for yourself as such. You haven't got that structure of 5, 6, 7 years going on because you're only 21 or 22, let's say. But when
I think it's just because you haven't met the right guy.
Yeah, but I think
So
once
for
you
you
do,
to want to surrender.
yeah, I do. Like it's interesting as well. It's interesting to see, and I look forward to be able to speak about it on the podcast. To be fair, because there is going to be a huge difference, and I would like to see myself how I respond to that and what happens, because I know myself and I know my daily structure. So having someone else come in, it's interesting to see as a woman or as a human what happens, and do we just let go and just allow it and surrender, or do we have this strong resistance? Or
So is that what you'd want to talk about on the podcast?
I'd want to, once I'm in that relationship, when I'm there, then I would definitely open up and tell everything. Definitely.
See, I'm going to add something very interesting. And it ties into what we talked about last week. You see what you just said? I want love and I want that stuff, but you're having struggling surrendering.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm wondering if it would be. I don't know.
I think it would be because you're so used to doing it that way. So
yeah, maybe.
But that's the thing. You have to understand that you can't ask for love if you're not willing to surrender those things, as in the sense of allowing someone into your space.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. I think when you've got the right person, I would assume that all of a sudden it doesn't even come to your mind. Your body automatically just allows, and you start to be open. But I think if it's the wrong,
I agree with you. Yes, I've noticed that when women really like a guy, and I'm talking like in love with him, all guys don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
she doesn't want to talk to other men. She's all about her work, her man, her fitness, her spiritual. That's it. I've noticed that with some women.
Yeah.
I've noticed that when they really like a guy, he doesn't even have to ask her to talk to other men. She just doesn't want to.
It's all in. No, you're very right. It is
she just doesn't want to do it. Like
nothing else exists in that sense. It's like have you seen? I don't know. You've probably come across it, like going through, in Canada, walking around, where you get people who are in love and they're just kissing away, and they would not know that there's anybody around them. As far as they're concerned, they're in a tunnel. It's just them two, and they're in each other, and people will shout out, "Get a room!" But actually, I've heard it so many times when you're going out and about, and someone shouts out, "Get a room!" And it's like, actually, leave them. They're in their own bubble,
in their own little world, and
literally are in their own world.
Can you surrender in a relationship? And the thing is, in a long distance relationship, you're gonna have to surrender even more.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to, because you're going to have that structure. You're going to have that communication. You're going to have that spontaneousness. You're going to have so much.
Yes.
And I think and again, I'm honestly hoping that you can make a note of this. I would love for us to talk on the podcast about attachment and detachment, because sometimes I've noticed a lot of times, and Stefan brought it up, it's the ability to be able to walk away. If it's not for you, it's not for you. As he said, if you guys are talking, and let's say, for example, she gets a promotion at work and she's stuck there, and you're busy too and you don't want to move there, you guys can't come to an agreement. You need to walk away. As Stefan says, it's not negative. And I think sometimes we have a hard time walking away from people because of that over attachment. You're more attached to the time.
Yes.
You're more attached to the years and the experiences.
Yes.
Instead of looking at, does it work?
Yes.
So honestly, please do make a note of that, Anthea, is we're going to talk about attachment and detachment and the ability to walk away, because at the same time, sometimes you have to acknowledge, and it's hard. it sucks because you've had years with this person, you've had experiences, you've had all of these things with this person. But at the same time, it's like you need to understand that you might need to walk away, especially if it's a new relationship. Let's say you guys are getting to know each other, and as Anthea has brought up, she doesn't want kids, you want kids. And you guys, and nobody should ever have to conform because that's a big change.
It's
You should
huge.
just let it go. But that's the thing. You see, this is what makes relationships so interesting. Is I've heard of women say, I don't want kids, but when they found the guy of their dreams, they want children. When it's the
Yeah,
guy of their dreams, I'm not talking about just some smock, but I'm talking
yeah.
about the guy of their dreams, like the guy, not a guy, the guy.
The guy.
They
Yeah,
want kids. It's like you have guys that say, I don't want to get married, I don't want to get married, but when they meet the girl,
yeah.
they want to get married.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, and this is what I mean when it's the right person.
I just think nothing's off the table, personally. A lot of times we'll say that we want, like that we'll say, let's say you don't want children. But then let's say you meet the one, you're willing to, have kids with that individual, woman or man. So, guys, with that being said, we really appreciate you tuning in for us with this podcast. As I said, there's 3 people in here. Please like, share, subscribe to the video. We're going to short clip it. We're going to put it on our channels. And we really appreciate you guys being able to be here with us, hear our ideas, watch us break videos down. As I said, none of this would be possible without you guys. So honestly, give yourselves a pat on the back for supporting us in our journey in building a brand and actually helping people date better and be more effective in their dating world. With that being said, take care, guys, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. So, as I said, none of this would have been possible without you guys. And Anthea's back when I was just about to close out the show.
I don't know what happened there. Sorry.
No, I was just about to close out the show, but no, if there's anything you wanted to add, go right ahead.
Do you know what? I was in the middle of talking away, and it was like all of a sudden I was no longer on the screen. I was like, "What happened?" No, I think I was just saying. I just wanted to finish on that one to say when you do meet that right person, you are just happy to. It's like I suppose your natural being takes over, and you just be the person.
You fully surrender to it.
You fully surrender to it. That's what it is, right? And that's really exciting to think that, because that's just made me understand the biggest difference between the right person and somebody that's not the right person for me. Like now I know, like the right person for me, I'll be so happy just to surrender and just get on with it and be happy to do what I want.
But that's the thing. That's what you said, and it's funny because again, like I have a chat with my pastor from time to time. And that's what he said. When you fully love somebody, you fully surrender. You don't struggle with surrendering. Because again, if you struggle with surrendering, but again, it depends on the context, because maybe you didn't create the best environment. Maybe some things happen where you guys have to rebuild trust again or anything of the sorts. But like, as my pastor said, when you guys smooth out all the details and you get rid of the confusion, you get rid of a lot of the stuff, and confusion gets rid of conflict, and you can fully surrender to that person, that's when you can have the most loving, most fruitful, most engaging relationship. Because a lot of times we struggle to surrender because we've either been cheated on, lied to, disappointed, all those things. So when you look back at a lot of your relationships, ask yourself this: was I really able to fully surrender? And if you weren't, those were the relationships that weren't for you, and that's why they didn't work out. Because the relationship that's for you, you'll surrender fully, that person will surrender fully, and it will fully work and be prosperous and work out.
Absolutely. And also, I just want to add here, I want people to really take on board that just because a relationship didn't work, it doesn't mean it was a failure. And
I will correct that. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And also, I was just going to say, from there, when you're in a new relationship, remember that you're with a completely new person. So taking what you've experienced in the past of negative ways and bringing that to your present in your current or your next relationship, it's not going to work. And
Write that down. Write that down, because we do have to talk about that as well.
And that's where you can say you found yourself, not the relationship. Because if you're bringing your old baggage to the present and saying, well, my ex cheated, so I don't trust you, well, that person in that moment should just walk, because you don't need to be on that side of it either, to be the person being pointed a finger at because of somebody's experiences. That's not how you treat people in this world. You
Well, make
turn
sure
up
to
with
write that down. We need to talk about that, because that does happen a lot in relationships, where people bring their past into their present. There's something I want to touch on in what you said. When a relationship fails, it doesn't make you a failure,
right.
but that relationship still failed.
Yeah.
Take the L.
Yes,
That's the thing.
yes,
It
I
doesn't
hear
mean
that.
you're a failure, but
No,
that relationship did fail. Take
yeah,
the
it
L.
didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't work. At the
Yeah.
same time, I don't think people need to beat themselves up about that and be
No.
like, I think people just need to learn to just, it's an experience, let it go. Like,
But
you're
also
not,
understand that it is a loss. Like, understand you failed in that situation. It doesn't make you a failure. You just
no.
failed in that situation.
Yes, and it doesn't mean you're going to fail in the next, but unless you
No.
bring that whole aspect of everything from that relationship into your next relationship, it's like I found life to be so much more easier when I just look forward and forget about what happened behind me, because I can take each moment for what it is and not get confused with my past, because the past is gone. It's like you look in the rear view mirror, it's done, it's dusted. Stop bringing it forward, and especially into your new relationship. And if you're in a long distance relationship, then you really need to leave whatever you had in your past with the last relationship, leave it be or walk away, because you have no, I just don't think anyone needs to come together and start bringing their BS, from the past into their present, and then put that pressure onto somebody else and expect them to have to take what you're saying.
I am going to say this. What you said is very interesting. The past is the past, but you should not be repeating mistakes of the past. Because if you're still repeating mistakes of the past, then it's not the past. It's
No.
present.
Well, you're bringing it to your present. It's still the past,
Exactly.
but you're now making it into your present moment. That's what I mean. It's like, let it go. Learn what you
you
learned
should
from
never be repeating the same mistakes.
No.
Because at that point, it's you know what I mean? You're driving yourself crazy.
Well, catch yourself. I think this is where awareness, awareness comes in. Yes.
And that's the thing. A lot of people look at themselves as a failure. No, you just failed in that situation.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you're a failure. It's just you failed at that very moment.
Yes.
You failed. So what you can do, and I always say this, use the past as the template to not make the same mistakes going forward and make better choices. Because that's the thing. Let's say, for example, you're dating the same type of people, then clearly you're not learning your lesson. If you've been with a guy that's not been the best, or they lie, they cheat, they do all these things, and then you're the last 5 guys you've dated have all been the same,
then you're the problem.
That's a you problem.
Yes, a you problem. Stop putting it on other people.
And clearly, your decision-making skills are not the best.
No, you need to work on your decision-making skills.
So that's what it would come down to me, because it's easy to blame and say, oh, it's their fault. You've dated the same dude.
Yeah. And I think you can use your past as a reference to know the difference, right? Reference it, go in your little archive and go, aha, okay, when I was with that guy, he didn't actually, it didn't take me out to dinner. He didn't listen to me. He didn't this. This guy appears to be doing exactly the same thing. I've chosen him, but actually it's my choice to be able to say, well, I've chosen somebody who's not right for me. I can walk from this. Don't try and make it work, because it's not, if you've already recognized that you've just made the same mistake again, then it's not going to then work out to be anything different to the last time. You've got to take on board what worked, what didn't work, and implement what does work into today, and forget about what didn't work, because that's just not going to get you in the same situation, and that's a failed relationship.
Well,
Because that's what happened.
I want to add a caveat. In a relationship, fights and disagreements are going to happen.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
not always going to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things.
Yeah.
Now, the question that I'm going to say is, when you guys hash it out and you guys work past it, it should never come up again. Because what you're doing is, it ties into what Anthea said. You're using the past. So let's say you guys get into a disagreement about something. You guys fix it. That should be let go of.
Done.
It should
It's
never
finished.
come up again, or that thought process again. So let's say, for example, and I love this show and why we do this. The woman says, "Hey, you don't take me on enough dates." The guy says, "Cool, I'm going to start taking you on dates," right? He starts taking her on dates. Things get better. Things improve. One time he forgets to take her out on a date because he's busy with work or whatever. She gets triggered from the past because of what happened a long time ago, and then references that and use that as a reference point to say, "Oh, but you remember that time when you didn't take me on dates?" It's like, why are we talking about that? I missed one time. We hashed that situation out. It's done. But it's the same thing on a male side. You know what I mean? Like if a man says like something and he's not doing it, and a woman's like, "Yo, come on," it should be in the past. If you guys have come to an agreement and understanding that, this won't happen again, or, whatever, it should never come up.
Mm-hmm.
Because then what you're saying is, if you keep bringing it up, that means you're not over it.
Absolutely.
And if you're not over it, then we can't go forward.
Exactly. I think we'll end it there. Yeah.
So some people get over things faster than others. I do, personally, because I don't have time to sit there and mull over what you did to me in the past. If you don't do it again, we're good.
Our time is precious.
That's me. If you don't do it again, we're good. I don't have time to be like, "Oh, remember that time when you did this?" That's a child. I'm not calling you a child. I'm saying you have childlike tendencies. There's a difference. So what I'm saying is that if you're just like, "Oh, I remember that time," and no, it's like, if we hashed it out and we've come to the understanding and agreement that this will not happen again, and this type of behavior is unacceptable, then it shouldn't come up.
Yeah,
we should have other problems, not that problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Or no problems at all. That would be nice.
No problems at all would be nice, but that would be like living in a Disney fairy tale relationship.
Yeah, we need little problems of some sort, don't we?
Yeah.
So cool.
Anyways, guys,
it's been good. It's been a good one.
Yeah, we won't keep you any longer, guys. Hopefully you take something away from this, and we will see you guys on Wednesday.
Yeah, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Okay, bye.